Did you have a teacher who kind of nurtured your creativity? And if so, how did that make you feel when you had a teacher who kind of saw a spark in you or saw something in you and kind of just kind of got it all out of you?
Yeah, I know I've talked about Mrs. Sipperly before. She was actually Mrs. Sipperly, and then she was Mrs. Bone. She got married to well, during the school year, and we all got to go to her reception. It was really sweet.
So the students were
Um,
at the reception, you went to the
mhm,
reception? Oh my God.
mhm. Yeah, all these, we were sixth graders, so it was like all of these sixth graders. Um, but she was part of a barbershop quartet. And she was this big kind of very like handsome woman with a big voice, big personality. But for all of that, she saw you. I mean, it wasn't just me, but she saw you as an individual, and she even gave us each nicknames. I still am wearing Peaches here on my necklace because she named me Peaches. I have two Peaches necklaces. She nicknamed me Peaches because of my skin or something. But everybody had their little nicknames for whatever, for a specific reason, something about them. And we had her husband had built cubbies for with all our names on them, and she would return papers there and stuff. And sometimes you'd look over at your cubby and you'd see a piece of paper in yours and not in anyone else's, and then there'd be like a note either addressing something that happened. I think I had that happen before, where she was like, I really like the way you handled that, whatever, something that happened with a friend, or just an observation. um but she was paying attention to you. And I remember how I mean, I know how that's left such an impression on me. And then in terms of like being creative, I mean, I think we sang all the time. I mean, she'd have pass out papers with lyrics, and we would sit around and she'd play piano. And it was just as important a part of the school day as anything else, was our time for music and singing and laughing, lots of jokes. It was fun and loose with her. And I think it helped me grow into feeling that my creativity was valid. It was a valid thing. It wasn't a hobby thing. It wasn't a small thing. It was an important, vital part of everything in my life, of everything that I was learning that was so important. This element was also equally important.
I love that. And I mean, it gives me the chills hearing how like those little things, like little notes and post-it notes and things like that, they're so simple, but they're so profound. They have such an impact, which leads me to
Yeah.
my next question. How did she make you feel? I always like asking people like how their teachers, how did Miss Sipperly, aka Miss Bone, make you feel?
Well, she made me feel seen. My school was mostly, I was in Southern California, so it was a lot of Mexican American kids and white kids. And there were like, three black kids. They were like, it was like, there just weren't a lot of us. So, but we were, but, and she was, big, tall, white woman. But none of that, it was a different time too, but none of it mattered. I just felt like for all of my looking so different from everybody else, I never felt funny. I never felt weird. I always felt seen for who I was. And there was absolutely nothing weird or wrong with it. I wasn't trying to blend in. I wasn't trying to be like, and this was a place with her where I certainly never felt awkward in my skin. I never felt, I just felt seen as Karyn, as Peaches, you know.
Now, this is a question for myself and for the educators. How can we as teachers like inspire students, kind of nurture their creativity and also you said like make sure they feel seen and feel empowered?
Well, I think that sending them notes once in a while is a great thing. Just that time that you take to say something that has nothing to do with anyone else in the classroom, that's very specific, that maybe matters to them, um, and then bring it to them. Let them know that you are singling them out as an individual in all of these people. and you know who they are. I know who you are. I know what you're up to. I'm paying attention to you. I see you as an individual. And I think that's definitely, I think that goes such a long way. Um, I also think in terms of creativity, like what I was mentioning with Ms. Sipperly, is that she infused everything with creative something. And I do think that we often in school, our schools, arts are always the first thing to go. And I think our society is kind of sending that message to everyone that it's a it's trivial, it's unimportant, it's hobby worthy at most to do these things. When the opposite, I feel, honestly, I mean, I'm an artist, but the opposite I feel is true. We have to learn to think creatively in everything we do. And so I think encouraging that by infusing your lessons or the things around it with just as much importance paid to some creative element. I think it makes it more engaging and interesting, but it also shows the students how important that part of their mind is in developing it, and them thinking differently than other people, and encouraging them to not be cookie cutter. I mean, I think that with phones and stuff, especially in social media, everyone's really trying to fit in more and more to what the thing is we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to say. And I think more than ever, it's important for young people to be encouraged to be themselves and to find that thing that sparks in them and is awakened in them, that maybe it isn't in that person, but they can give it to the rest of us. They can show it to the rest of us.
I love that you said that. As my students are writing, we watch clips of Hamilton, and they're rewriting lyrics to fit what we're studying now, and then they're going to sing them. And again, it helps them memorize it because they have to apply it. But at the same time, to me, it's like you said, it works on those skill sets that are so undervalued but so important.
Yeah.
And I haven't used calculus in 30 years, Karyn. I consume art and music every single day. So
There
what's
you go.
essential to sustaining human life and the human condition? So
Absolutely.
great point. I want to ask you a few questions on collaboration, because obviously now with your work as an author, you collaborate a lot. How do you collaborate to make your work better? How do you find working with others helps you improve your craft or your skill set?
I love collaborating. Love collaborating. And I'm an only child, so I was one of those people I was by myself doing my thing myself. But honestly, I can talk about it in so many different areas that I've worked in collaboration with people, and I get excited every single time. Where do I start? When I was actually on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I remember our director encouraging me to try some kind of blocking on a line that seems so silly and ridiculous to me and bad. It seemed like a bad choice. Like we were trying to figure out how to make this long thing I have to say work. And so he was trying to figure out how to do it. And he came up with a blocking bit. My character goes and picks flowers out of a vase and then throws them over her shoulder in the middle of talking. And I was like, that's bad. That just looks not funny. And he was like, just try it, just try it. So after resisting like a little brat for a minute, going, this is dumb, it's dumb, I tried it. And I tried it 100%, thinking it was bad. And it got a huge laugh. I took away a lesson from that. I realized if I give 100% to something that a collaborator brings to me, if I try, if it's a writing note, if it's an acting note, any kind of, when somebody says, what do you think about this? To really try to embrace it 100%. If it works or has something to it, you'll see it. And if it doesn't, you'll see it. Because if it fails, it's like bonk, just like, if it just like, you'll just see it lie flat, or the audience won't respond or whatever. And it's so great to also, with Sweet Blackberry, my organization, we do animated films as well as books. And it's so exciting for me to write the story of some great person in history and be doing all my research and finding ways to do it in verse and rhyme and play and bring this the story to them, to my art director. And then for my art director to take those words and that story, the way I've told it, and make these images from all different vantage points. I mean, it's like, oh, you know, like a two shot, like if it's a movie, like they'll do it like it's a two shot, they'll storyboard it like it's a two shot, or they'll do a overhead, you know, overlooking over a bunch of kids playing in a lake, or they'll do just somebody's foot kicking a ball, you know, as just the shot or whatever. And these things that help tell the story. And I get chills when the art director takes those words and puts these little storyboard movie pictures together. And then the illustrator sees that and all of a sudden adds all this life and personality and color and depth of history, because they'll make all of a sudden they'll dress everyone appropriate to the time, and they'll have the schoolhouse look like it did at that time. Things that I didn't say in the text, but they'll layer it in, and all of a sudden everyone's elevating everything. And the thing that's great is they're excited by what they're being given. I'm being excited by what I'm seeing. Collaboration is like, it's like magic. Like we're all just like throwing our bits in the pot out of this potion, you know, or just throw our potions in this big pot, and it's becoming this magical thing by the end of it. And it's inspiring. It's really inspiring. And it's lovely to work with other people and receive that encouragement. Like, oh, you really got what I wrote and you elevated it. It's just, there's nothing better than that to me.
Well, that leads me to my next question. I'm working on this. How do you resolve creative differences with people, like with directors, with people you collaborate with? I'm trying to get better on that. I'm learning to let go more, but it's
Yeah.
sometimes, especially when you're so close to your baby or your project.
Yes.
How have you worked on getting creative differences like you've had in the past?
It's hard. That's a hard one. Like it's hard when somebody brings something to you that you don't respond to. That's tough. Again, in that case, I say you try to give 100% try, and then it's always good to try to see what does work and convey what does work, and then maybe do your best to articulate what you feel is missing, or you know, if that's the way it's going. And if it's you, that's somebody else is saying, I don't like this, or this isn't working for me. I've been in that position a few times, and it's hard when you're, like you said, when you're close to it's your baby and you're close to it, and somebody says, I don't get this, or I think this character comes off really unlikable or something, you know. I like feedback, and I like to take it as feedback first, as constructive criticism. Mostly I'm really good at taking constructive criticism, because I look at it as somebody helping me. I look at it like collaboration, like you're here to help me. And you're neutral. I handed this to you, and that was your impression. Oh, okay. It doesn't mean that what I did was bad. It means what I'm trying to do, I can do better. I always think, okay, let me go and I can do this better. I can make you see this person is so not unlikable. They're quirky and they're weird, but they're not unlikable. And then I go back and I try to do my best. Now, what's hard is I've been in a situation where I've tried and they still said nope. And I've tried again and they've still said nope. And then sometimes you feel like, I think now they can't see because they're kind of stuck in this place. They're going to forever see it one way. And that may or may not be true, that happens sometimes with people. And that becomes a more difficult kind of reckoning you have to deal with. Like, okay, maybe I have to toss this or just move this completely to another place. Yeah, that becomes a little more difficult. But mostly I like to take it like, we are working together. You are neutral coming into this, not knowing anything. And I welcome your impression. Your impression does not mean I was wrong or my thing is bad. It's just, hopefully it's honest, and I'll take that.
I love that. So I do something with my students where every other week we share our best failure for the week. because I want them to embrace failure, because
That's great.
so many people don't do that. It's like you don't grow from success, you grow from failure. It's a learning.
Absolutely.
So we always share like what failure we're most proud of. And every week we kind of do something like that. So I'm curious, what is a recent failure you had that you're most proud of that you
Oh
probably
my gosh. That I'm most proud of. That's so hard to say that. That I'm most proud of. A recent failure that I'm most proud of. I guess my last book is a strange thing, because what happened is there was an initial story that I was telling, and I ended up having to rework a very important part of it because my audience was, it was a little too mature for my audience. And I did the thing that we were just talking about, where I tried to go, okay, wait, I can fix this. I can do this. Oh, wait. And I failed. I failed at being able to sell it, that we could make this work in this story. And it was such an important part of it that I I was really bummed out. And I had to totally find a way to shift my head, my thinking, and what I was making. And I did. And I did. I was able to rework and change the story. I was able to suck it up and go, okay, I get it. I get the reasons why, even though it was hard for me to let that go. And I definitely learned creatively, I learned quite a few things, but one thing I definitely learned is you wait until you're really, really ready before you show your stuff to somebody.
I've learned that lesson too. It's like I have to be really ready before I show it, because you only get one chance to make a first impression on
I
any.
know.
Yeah.
And I thought I knew that, but I can't. But there was a part of me that was like, oh, I'm having problems with some things though. So I'll just see if they can help me out with this. No, not doing that again. No, gotta get as close as you can to feeling really good about it, and then, you know, present it.
Do you mind if we're going to touch on a little bit nostalgia?
Yeah.
We can spend time with you. And we've talked about this, how it's so many people have such great memories, and you're a part of so many people's lives, even though it's indirectly you are, and people are so happy to see you and have so much joy when they see you. You're probably obviously most recognized for being on a sitcom, but how did you express your authentic self in your role as Hillary? Like, how did you?
Yeah.
And it's, again, knowing you and knowing your character, I think you're two distinctly different people. How did you express your authentic self in that part?
Yeah, I think it's such a funny question, but I think I think for me in acting, and I'm trying to do it in my writing, but definitely, in everything, hopefully we do, especially, I mean, in all of our work, but especially as artists, um, I try to be truthful. So even though I'm playing Hillary Banks in this sitcom world, I still have to find the truth in everything that I do. I can't just have some intellectual idea of what I think is going to be funny, a funny way of doing this. I have to understand and really bring these words that she's saying, that the writers, our brilliant writers, have written. I have to make them her. I have to own them. And then and it's all me. I mean, it's all parts of me, as much as it's hard to admit it. Hillary is me. I'm calling upon things that, even though they are not the way I really behave in real life, they are obviously some kind of truthful insight I have into something intuitively, somebody hits me and I go, what, stop, whatever, there's a part of me that can be that Hillary thing, can be that little, catty, can be these things. It's funny, and I think part of it is because it's truthful to something in me. I lean into my truth of that. Does that make any sense?
It definitely makes, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I still think you're two completely different people now. Now, what's your favorite memory of expressing your creativity as an actress? Like, do you have any specific memory or time? You mentioned one with the director, but was there ever a time where you were given that opportunity to express your creativity and kind of given freedom, and it just, you never forget that moment because it kind of helped shape you in some way?
The most freeing times I had as an actor were in class, were in my workshops and classes. Spent a lot of time in workshops and classes. You know, you're not hampered by action.
Yeah.
Everybody
One
stops
take.
and
We have
everyone,
one take. We have one.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta get home. We gotta get out of here. Everybody be quiet. All right, Karen, come on, drive it home. Let's get us home tonight. Get us home right now. And you're like, no pressure at all. um, when you're in acting class or acting workshop and you are being encouraged, you know, places in yourself and to be so honest and raw, and everyone will catch you if you when you fall, and you just are that that environment was always so exciting and scary and sometimes intimidating, but not as it's such so different. It's so much more freeing, I think. Um, Often than being on a set. You know, a set has very different things attached to it. Performance, you know, performing as opposed to expressing and being, and you know,
Exploring too, exploring options.
exploring and learning and discovering things and just going, wow, I got feeling it happening and having a scene happen and things happening in you that you didn't know were a part of you. You didn't know. You're like, all of a sudden you cracked open doors and, you know, went past, you know, deeper in wells that you had no idea, things inside of you, where you would be led. And that was always exciting to find out about myself. I'm hoping I have more of, I've had some of that with my writing. You know, it's a new horizon for me, relatively new horizon. I'm kind of traveling and along or toward. I get to explore and discover and hopefully find some real depth and honesty, and hopefully be surprised along the way.
I love that. Now, this is a tough question, but what is the best creative advice you've ever received? If there is any, and it's obviously that's like, what's your favorite movie? You know, it's like, it's very
I
tough.
know.
What,
It is.
what would you say? What is some great advice? Not the best, but what is some great creative advice that you've received?
I will say this, I may have mentioned to you before, and this is about writing. And this is advice I try to remind myself about. It's more about the process. And that is that when you first start, because it's so intimidating, especially when you have ideas in your head and you're like, it's so good. And you go to write and you, of course, you stare at the page and don't write anything, because how can you get this perfect thing that's in your head down on paper? Well, you usually don't right away. So, but somebody said once, and it really rang true with me, is that those first words, those first drafts are like digging in the mud for the clay. And you're just putting that on there right now. That's what's getting on the page right now. It's a mess. It's ugly and has no shape. But this is the stuff you're going to work with. And you've got to find what you're going to work with, right? So don't worry if it's ugly. Don't worry if it's messy. Just get it on the page. Get it there. Dig it up. Get it on there, and then go back and work it, and then go back again later and work it, rework it, and look at it and go work it some more. And I it helps me all the time to think of that, remind myself of that. Because that is what I do. It's like, I think it was Stephen King that says, you know, writing is rewriting. And it's true.
Well, it's just such a very simple analogy, and everyone can relate to that. Everyone can relate to starting with a block or starting with a piece of wood and then going from there. So it's a great analogy and visual for people to kind of understand that.
I think it helps to also to be so forgiving with yourself. Like, it's okay. It's a mess. It has to start somewhere. Just understand that you can keep working at it, and it will eventually, that block, that whatever it is, will become something.
So I have one more question.
Yeah.
And why do you think, it's funny, it's the holidays, and it's like, there's certain movies I watch that bring me back to a place as a child. So
Yeah.
I think as adults, we appreciate nostalgia so much more because it brings us back to a time when things were safe, life was simple. Why do you think nostalgia is so powerful? And you experience nostalgia every day. I'm just spending time with you. Like, why do you think we are so nostalgic as human beings, and why is it so powerful?
Well, I think you touched on a really big part of it is it takes us back to um, um like when we were children or a place of joy. Usually it's nostalgic for things that brought us joy and some kind of lightness or happiness or freedom. So it's like it takes us back to when we were freer, when we were more creative, when we were like brighter, when something really touched us and sparked something in us and excited us. So I think that we all deserve to have that feeling more and more. And sometimes we're going so much like this that it's when we look back that we recognize the joy and the things like that. And maybe people are looking more and more to have that in their lives. So they're finding it in things that came before.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. And it's always
Oh, you're
insightful.
welcome.
I never leave a conversation with you without learning something about myself or learning something I could use to become a better educator. So thank you
Oh,
so
that's so nice to say.